Welcome to Shankar's Daily News Analysis. Today's date is 4th of December 2024 and today World Wildlife Day and Indian Navy Day is celebrated. So on this occasion, let's discuss three news articles. So in the first news article, we will discuss about the World Wildlife Day and what are the critically endangered species and why do they need a protection. And in the second article, we will detailedly discuss about the ICJ, which is the International Court of Justice, and lastly we will discuss about the pardoning powers of the President and Governor, which comes under the Article 72 and 161 respectively. So without further delay, let's get into today's discussion. So this particular article discusses about the pardoning power of both post. One is the Governor and second is the President. So we will have a quick discussion about the pardoning power of the Governor and President from the prelims perspective detailedly. So the pardoning power of President is given under the Article 72 and for the Governor it is given in the Article 161. So let's see the provisions of these two articles detailedly. Starting with Article 72, it discusses about the pardoning power of President. According to this article, the President has the authority to declare these 5 provisions, that is the pardon, reprieve, respite, remission and commutation under certain circumstances. One is if a person is offending any union law, that is a law made by the Parliament, and secondly if a person or a member of armed forces is violating the law made by martial law, that is the military law, and thirdly if a person is given with death sentences, the President has the exclusive power to declare the pardon. This is called as these three are the special circumstances under which the President can grant the pardoning power. So coming to the terms, firstly we have the pardon. Pardon is nothing but he is completely absolved from any offense or penalty. Absolved in the sense he is completely free from the punishment and penalty. This is called as the pardon. With respect to commutation, one form of punishment is substituted or transformed into a lighter form of punishment. For example, he is given with death sentences, it can be transformed into life imprisonment. So there is a substitution of the punishment and this you can see there is a change of character. With respect to reprieve, here there is a temporary suspension of punishment, especially with respect when there is a need for the judicial review or if there is a required for appeal, the punishment is temporarily suspended, that is reprieve, that is called as the reprieve. And thirdly we have respite and remission. Both involves a reduction of punishment, but here the punishment is reduced considering special circumstances such as disability or pregnancy. With respect to remission, there is a reduction in the length of the sentence. For example, if given more number of years in the sentence, the number of years can be reduced without changing the character. This is called as the remission. You have to remember all these 5 terms as they can be twisted with the alternate terms. So have a quick look and understand them. So Article 160 discusses about the pardoning power of the Governor. So whatever the power the President has, the Governor has, except with respect to the death sentence and with respect to the offence committed under the martial law. With respect to death sentence, the President only can pardon, and with respect to martial law, only President can pardon. These are the 2 exclusive powers of the President, so make note of this. So let's compare the pardoning power of President and Governor to have a clear view. So he has the pardoning power for any union law and he has the pardoning power under any state law. As already said, President has the pardoning power for the death sentence as well, while the Governor do not. And the pardoning power, that is he can pardon or commute for any offences under the court martial, but the Governor has no such jurisdiction under the Article 161. These are the 3 differences you have to understand, nothing much. And with respect to the important case laws which frame the nature of the pardoning power, first we have the Maruram versus the Union of India case in the year 1980. So this case said that the pardoning power is not absolute and it is subjected to judicial scrutiny. And another important case is with respect to Ipru Sudhagar versus the government of Andhra Pradesh in the year 2006. He said that the pardoning power is not absolute and it can be challenged on specific grounds. So the pardoning power is subjected to limited judicial review. They will check three things, that is, it is not done under any malified intention, that is nothing but there is no misuse of power for the purpose of personal or political gains. So they will ensure this aspect in the judicial review. And second, they will check the arbitrariness, that is, it is done without any arbitrariness of the president or governor. And secondly, we have the arbitrariness, and thirdly, we have the violation of constitutional provisions. So the judicial review will check that the pardoning power of the president is in line with the law and the justice. So they will ensure this. So these are the important aspects which we have to remember with respect to the pardoning power. So with this knowledge, let's see a prelims practice question. Which of the following statement about the pardoning power of the president and governor are correct? Both president and governor can pardon death sentence. No, this is incorrect. Only president can pardon and governor cannot pardon, and this is an important statement which we have to remember regarding the pardoning power. So this is incorrect. Secondly, the governor cannot grant pardon for offences under court martial. This is also true. He cannot grant the offences. He cannot grant pardons for offences. And thirdly, we have a statement, both president and governor can commute sentences of life imprisonment. Yes, this is correct. So the correct statement would be option B, 2 and 3. With this, we will conclude the discussion on this article, and now let's see the next one. So today is World Wildlife Day, and based on that day, they have discussed this article. They have discussed the importance of protecting the India's critically endangered species. So you have to understand that we have only 2.4% of land of the whole world, and it accounts for almost 7 to 8% of the recorded species. So this is huge, and the need to protect the endangered species, particularly critically endangered species, is very essential, which is highlighted in this article. So another important fact which you have to understand and learn is that of the 9 mammals, critically endangered mammals in India, 8 are endemic in nature. So these 8 you have to remember. Firstly, we have the Kashmir stag. Secondly, we have the Malabar largest spotted civet, and Andaman shrew, Jenkins shrew, Nicobar shrew, Namdapa flying squirrel, large rock rat, and leaflet leaf-nosed bat. So these 8 mammals are endemic to India. So you have to learn these. So we have 10 biogeographic zones in India, and of the 73 critically endangered species, 9 are mammals, and among this 9, 8 are endemic to India. We also have 4 biodiversity hotspots, one being Himalaya, second Indo-Burma, third Western Ghats, fourth the Sundaland. So these are the 4 biodiversity hotspots. So also they have mentioned about the critically endangered species. So what are they? Based on the IUCN, so they have classified the species based on the risk of extinction, and among that we have a criteria called as critically endangered species. So based on what criteria they come under the critically endangered species is that they are limited in distribution, that is less than 100 square kilometer, and they are few in number, that is less than 50. They are, if we consider the past few years, they are subjected to a rapid decline in the population, that is about 90% of decline in the population. If a species comes under all these 3 categories, it is considered as the critically endangered species. So these are the example enlisted in that. So in mammals, we have the Kashmir stag, Malabar civet, Namdapa flying squirrel, and in the birds, we have the Great Indian Bustard forest owlet, and under amphibians, we have the Ganges shark and Pondicherry shark. Under plants, we have the Carpus reticis, Amantotaxis assamica. So these are few examples of the critically endangered species. So having mentioned about the biogeographic zones of India, let's take a quick look with the help of the map. Firstly, we have the trans-Himalayan zones, which is one which is mentioned here. So this is the trans-Himalayan zone. Secondly, we have the Himalayan zones, which consist of the western Himalayas and the eastern Himalayas. Thirdly, we have the Indian desert, that is the Thar desert, and fourthly, we have the semi-arid region, which is this region, and we also have the Western Ghats in the western part of the Deccan Plateau. So similarly, we also have the Deccan Peninsula, which is this region, the Gangetic Plain. We also have the Northeast India, which consists of the tropical rainforest and the mangroves, which are present in the islands of Andaman. So these are the 10 biogeographic zones of India. As already said, the IUCN has classified the species based on the risk of extinction into these 8 categories. So among this, the least concern is most abundantly found and they need the least protection, and we have the near threatened, which is in the close to meet the criteria of the vulnerable status, and if it is vulnerable in nature, they are in the risk of extinction. Similarly, if they go from one criteria to another, the risk of extinction increases. So we have discussed about the criteria for critically endangered species, that is they have to less than 50, less than 100 kilometers square in the range of availability, and there is a 90% decline in the population. These are the criteria which are considered for declaring any species as the critically endangered species. Similarly, based on this criteria, we have the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and we have various schedules, that is schedule 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6 to protect these species. For example, if we consider schedule 1, they have the highest form of protection. Any form of hunting, poaching or trade of the species is strictly prohibited. For example, we have the Bengal tiger, Indian bustard, the Kashmir stag, all comes under the schedule 1, and under schedule 2 we have the endangered species, and the protection is less compared to the schedule 1, but here also the hunting and poaching is prohibited. When we come to schedule 3, it protects all the species under the vulnerable species category of the IUCN red list, and the prohibition is regulated in this case. For example, we have the mugger crocodile, black bug, etc. And in schedule 4, it protects the species of special concern, and the hunting or poaching is allowed under certain specific circumstances. For example, we have the Indian palm civet, Indian wild dog, etc. And under schedule 5, vermin comes. Vermin is nothing but they are pests and rodent. For example, we have the common crow and the fruit bat. So all the plants, for example, rhododendron, which is mostly found in the Himalayas, are protected under the schedule 6. So in this article discussion, we saw what are critically endangered species. We also saw the IUCN red list categories and the schedules of the Wildlife Protection Act and what are the provisions under each schedule. We also saw the 5 biogeographic zones of India. With this knowledge, let's see a prelims question. Which of the following species is listed as critically endangered and endemic to India? So the answer is Great Indian Bustard. So you can remember the 8 mammals which are mentioned in this article, which are endemic to India. With this, we'll conclude the discussion on this article, and now let's move on to the next one. Take a look at this article. Let me explain the crux of this article first. Recently at Baku, Azerbaijan, COP29 happened, and all the countries have promised to mobilize and climate finance of about $300 billion as the climate finance by the year 2035. So this $300 billion will be for annually by 2035. But this is totally in contrast with the demand which is put forth by the developing nations. They have demanded a climate finance of about $1.3 trillion as the climate finance. If you think, the effect of climate change is mostly on the developing nations as well as the small island nations. This is the crux of this article. So based on this unsatisfactory action that happened in the COP29, they have taken the problem to the International Court of Justice and they are hearing the case. And if you go back to March 2023, there the small island nations, particularly the Vanuatu, has initiated a resolution in the United Nations General Assembly to address the problem of this climate change. So the United Nations General Assembly has taken this resolution and they have referred this problem to the International Court of Justice. And currently the International Court of Justice has heard this case and it can have a particular potential to shape the future climate talks and the agreements which are going to be signed there. So what we have to focus on the prelims perspective is that we have to focus on the International Court of Justice as it can be a possible prelims question. So let's try to understand and have a clear picture of this International Court of Justice. So after the World War I, Permanent Court of International Justice was formed, and in the year 1946 this PCIJ was dissolved. So this is on one side. On the other side, you have to understand that after the World War II, based on the UN Charter, this International Court of Justice was formed on the year 1945, and soon after this was dissolved, the responsibilities of this PCIJ were transferred to the International Court of Justice. This is with respect to the establishment. Another unique feature is that all the organs of the United Nations have their headquarters at the New York, but with respect to this International Court of Justice, its headquarters is located at the Hague in Netherlands. So this can be a possible prelims question. So if you see, Netherlands is between the Belgium and Germany, and with the north of Netherlands we have the North Sea. This is with respect to the position of the Hague, Netherlands. So the International Court of Justice has two main objectives. One is to settle the legal disputes between the states. So here the states, they will hear only the legal disputes between states and not any individuals or any organization. This is what they are mentioning here. And with respect to the second objective, so they have the power to provide an advisory opinion on any legal question which is referred by any United Nations organ, or it is referred by any specialized organization. This is the two main objectives of International Court of Justice. Coming to the composition of this International Court of Justice, so they have a composition of about 15 judges, and 1/3 of the judges, that is 5 judges, are elected every 3 years, and this 15 judges have a time period, that is tenure of about 9 years. And they are eligible for the re-election. This is what you have to understand with respect to the composition of the International Court of Justice. Similarly, we also have a regional representation from each regions. With respect to Africa, we have 3, Latin America and Caribbean we have 2, and in Asia we have 3 representatives, and from Western Europe we have 5, and from Eastern Europe we have 2. This is with respect to the regional representation, but you have to understand that these judges operate independently and not based on any representation from the state. So they do not favor any particular state and they will operate independently, and the administrative support is provided by a registry, and the official language of this International Court of Justice is one English and another French. So talking about the jurisdiction of this International Court of Justice, we have 2 jurisdictions. One is the contentious cases, that is the one I mentioned, that is the legal questions between the states. If there is any legal disputes, so you have to underline the term legal, and if there is any legal disputes between 2 or more countries, this International Court of Justice will hear the case. So one thing you have to remember in this contentious cases is that they will hear the case only when the countries are accepting their jurisdiction. That is, they are only when they are agreeing to the jurisdiction, the International Court of Justice will hear the case. So this is called as the state consent, and the judgment offered by the International Court of Justice in this contentious cases is binding in nature, and they cannot appeal in this contentious cases. This is what we have to understand with respect to the contentious cases. Second, we have the advisory opinion. So if any matter is referred by the United Nations organ, such as the United Nations General Assembly or the Security Council, they will hear the issues. And if any problem is referred by the specialized agency such as WHO, they will also offer an advisory opinion. One important thing you have to understand and remember is it is non-binding in nature. So these are the possible question where the prelims question can be twisted. So it is non-binding in nature, it is binding in nature. So now we will see about an important case with respect to the International Court of Justice in India. So this Kulbhushan Jadhav case happened in 2017. So Jadhav, he is a Indian citizen and he was caught in the Pakistan and he was about to be executed in Pakistan for alleged spying, and he was not offered any counselor from India. He was denied access to any counselor, that is to seek any legal help. So India took this problem to International Court of Justice, and International Court of Justice said that they have to halt the process of execution until the problem is reviewed. They also supported India to provide a legal counselor to the Jadhav to hear the cases. This is an important landmark case of International Court of Justice in India. So in this article we saw the major features of the International Court of Justice, the establishment, the structure, the composition, what is the jurisdiction and the objective. We also saw an important difference from other United Nations organ, that is it is located in the Hague, Netherlands. So with this knowledge, let's see a prelims question and try to solve that. Which of the following statement are correct regarding the International Court of Justice? 1. Only states can be parties to the contentious cases. Yes, this is correct. Any individual or organization cannot be parties with respect to the contentious cases, such as the legal disputes between the states. And in the second statement, judges are elected by the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council. Yes, this statement is also correct. The 15 members, that is the 15 judges, are elected by the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council. The advisory opinion of International Court of Justice are legally binding. No, this is incorrect. This is what I mentioned. So the question can be twisted. So the correct answer is A, 1 and 2. We have come to end of today's video. If you found the video informative, do hit like, give your feedbacks as comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Have a nice day.